from Radio Row in New Orleans, Louisiana. Super Bowl week, baby. Eagles and Chiefs rematch. Some of the biggest names in sports and entertainment will be right here. Put your seatbelts on and get ready for the ride. It's the Jake Asman Show.
Live from Radio Row, it is the Jake Asman Show, the Jake Asman Football Show, presented by my friends at BetUS. If you're betting on the big game this Sunday, use BetUS, a 150% sign-up bonus with your first deposit, so take full advantage of that. Once again, shout out to BetUS for being our presenting sponsor. Joining us right now is one of my favorites in the industry. If you're an NFL draft fan, you are well aware of who this guy is. He's the lead draft analyst for PFF. Trevor Sikkema joins us now. Trevor, always great to catch up, man. How are you?
I'm doing fantastic, man. I appreciate you having me on the show. This is a legit setup. I know people can only see this side of the camera, but this is a full operation back here, and so I'm impressed the second I sat down. So it's good to be with you, man.
So your podcast, which I listen to every week, the Stock Exchange podcast with PFF. You and Connor Rogers do a great job, and I'm a Jet guy, so I first found you guys because Connor is basically our best representative among national media types for every Jet fan out there. But I love the pod. I love how you guys are able to really go in depth. I think a lot better than most draft podcasts. So kind of give us the backstory of that. How did you guys get together, start doing it, and did you ever expect it to blow up the way it has?
Oh, man. Well, Connor's been a good friend in the industry for a long time. And, when I've kind of bounced around a little bit, I started my career. I was with Pewter Report down in Tampa covering the Buccaneers as a beat reporter. And then I helped launch the Draft Network. And so the draft has just been a massive passion of mine for a long time. And I was doing Locked On NFL Draft with Ben Solak. And then, Solak had the opportunity to move on to The Ringer. And so I really didn't have a podcast after that. Ended up going over to PFF. Connor was with Bleacher Report, and then he moves over to NBC. And so he was kind of looking for something after Stick to Football, and I was looking for something after Locked On NFL Draft. And PFF was like, hey, we'd love for you to start a podcast. What would you like it to be about, and who would you like for your co-host to be? And I was like, well, I'd love for it to be about the NFL Draft because that is what I am heavily passionate about. And at the time, Connor was a podcast free agent. And I couldn't believe it, right? It's like hitting the lottery when somebody like that isn't already signed to a podcast. And I sort of reached out to him. We did a little test podcast together. Wow. Not that we really needed to together, but just the producers want to see like, all right, let's see what the chemistry is like. And they're like, all right, we're absolutely in after one of those test podcasts. So it's been a lot of fun growing the NFL Stock Exchange show for, the last 2.5, almost 3 years now. And so it's been a lot of fun growing that audience. Just honestly, just talking about the draft with him, but talking about the draft with so many other people too. That's what I love the most is the audience grows. They get involved in the show too. And I'm a draft fan. You know what? We say it all the time. We're not talking to people. We're talking with people when we talk about the draft. And so, educating a little bit of people, running some mock drafts, doing some big board rankings, all that. It's all in good fun.
Does it blow your mind how big the draft continues to be? And it feels like it only gets bigger and bigger each year.
Honestly, it does. And I guess I can't be too shocked about it because I love it for a reason, right? And I see that as it grows, other people love it for that reason too, just because of the possibility of what can be. It's the imagination. It's building a team. It's thinking if this guy goes to this spot, just think this could be the missing piece. And that's when it is all so much fun. And that's why you want to have so much passion to learn about these players and figure out who those guys are going to be. And so, yeah, it's been awesome to see the draft grow.
We're talking with Trevor Sikkema here. His podcast, once again, the NFL Stock Exchange. Him and Connor Rogers, who if you're a Jet fan watching this, Connor, of course, was on with us earlier as he does at Radio Row and then the Combine every year. And that's where I want to head next. After the Super Bowl, we really start to immerse ourselves in draft season. You got the Combine coming up last week of February. But before we get to any of that, you were at the Senior Bowl last week in Mobile. And then, correct me if I'm wrong, did you go to Shrine as well in Dallas?
Was, of course. I double dipped right from one to the other, baby.
You're living out of a suitcase these last couple of weeks.
100% I am. The away suitcase bag, that's a free plug right there. I don't know how I fit all those clothes in that bag, but it does a great job making sure that I'm set for those 8 days.
So give me the overarching takeaways from Shrine, Senior Bowl. What does someone who's maybe, they're into the draft, but they're still trying to enjoy the last football game of the year on Sunday. They're going to really start to get into it now coming up. What do we need to know about this draft class? Some of the players that you saw that stood out at Shrine or Senior Bowl.
Really fun year in the trenches, I think. From both events, I think we saw that. When you start at Shrine, it's guys like John Williams, the offensive tackle from Cincinnati, Jordan Phillips, the defensive tackle from Maryland, CJ West, the defensive tackle from Indiana. You got two SMU guys headlined by Elijah Roberts at the Shrine Bowl, who was awesome. And then you go to the Senior Bowl as well. You got guys like TJ Sanders, Mike Green, Donovan Ezaraku, just like so many different players. Walter Nolan's another one that you could rattle off that had great weeks on the defensive and offensive trenches. And so, look, I think this draft class is getting a bad rap. A lot of people look at it and say, okay, well, we don't have these crazy, super hyped up prospects within the top 10. The quarterback position's a little bit lighter on talent this year than it has in years past, especially coming off the heels of last year's draft. And people go, this draft class sucks. It doesn't suck. I'm telling you, it doesn't suck. There's a lot of players that are going to get picked back into the first round, second round, and third round. They're going to make up the core parts of your NFL roster for a long time. And if you look at the draft class like that, like I know a lot of general managers are going to be able to do, that's where you're going to find the value within this class. And I think a lot of it's going to come from the trenches. And so that was a big takeaway that I had from both those weeks.
When it comes to the drafts, every fan is always asking about the quarterbacks. Now, correct me if I'm wrong. Most draft people only had 2 guys that were first-round quarterbacks in this class. And now all of a sudden I'm hearing a lot of people talking about Jaxson Dart after his week down in Mobile. What's the truth with Jaxson Dart? Are we going to get 3 quarterbacks potentially going in the first round now?
I suppose the truth is in the eye of the beholder. Maybe at this point in time, I don't know. Look, the tweets and the reports that I saw of like, Jaxson Dart's now a first-round pick. Oh, you got to pick Jaxson Dart in the top 10. I think that's unfair to the kid because now you're getting people going, okay, well, show me where on tape or in his performance he's actually showing you that he is worth that pick. And I think it's unfair because I don't see a lot of it there. Now, he's a really natural athlete, right? He's somebody who played baseball in high school. He was a third baseman. He's got a very natural arm to him. He played an offense in Ole Miss that was very, high profile, a lot of yards, like a lot of good production from him, especially when it came to those deep throws. But a lot of that is manufactured. Like a lot of that is from Lane Kiffin's design and Ole Miss's design. And you look at the first 5-6 games of the season, all right, they're not really playing anybody. You get into the second half of the year, you see some games where he really struggles down the stretch. That Florida game, that fourth quarter, that late in the fourth quarter specifically kind of stands out to you. This is also a guy who's almost exclusively played in the shotgun. And in the NFL, you really do have to be able to play under center at least a decent amount. And he's never done it. He had over 900 dropbacks as a starting quarterback at Ole Miss over the last 2 years. 9 of those 900 came under center.
So is he a guy that if you take him, you got to probably plan on sitting him at least a year so he can learn the NFL?
That's the thing for me is that, like, I am so much more comfortable with Jaxson Dart as a third at best, probably early day 3 type of a pick because it allows you to not have a lot of pressure on this guy and allow him to sit, learn an NFL offense. He's one of the younger guys in this class, which should be seen as a positive, and I think that it is. But it's only a positive if you let that be part of his development. And so, to me, when I just saw, when the Senior Bowl ended and so many people were just like, oh, yeah, now he's a first-round pick, I was like, do we watch different practices? Is this like, are we in the show Silo where, like, there's a, simulation going on where I'm watching something different? Because I think Jaxson Dart showed some nice things, but he also showed clear areas where he's going to need a little bit of time. So I'm not in that camp where I think he's now immediately a first round
pick. I agree. And the reason why I ask about him is because all year I'm hearing, and look, I cover the Jets locally, so we're talking about the future of the Jets and the quarterback. And, this is a terrible class to take someone. And now, on my local show covering the Jets, it's, they got to take Jaxson Dart at 7. And I'm like, based on what? All I heard was that this quarterback class is not very good. No. And now, because he had a decent week at the Senior Bowl, he's now a top 7 pick. That doesn't make any sense.
No, and it didn't make any sense to me either, honestly. It was just a vaulting of just putting him up there. I don't know, maybe because we want to talk about different quarterbacks. And again, like, I think Jaxson Dart can be talented. I just think it's going to take a little bit of time. For the Jets, I wouldn't hate Jaxson Dart with the Jets because he probably, if the situation stays the same. Let's say Aaron Rodgers comes back for a year, right? Like let's just say, Aaron Glenn goes, hey, let's run it back. I'm going to fix the defense this year. Next year, then we'll really kind of focus on the offensive side of the football, and we'll be a complete football team 2 years from now. We'll really hit the ground running and kick ass. If that is their game plan, then all of a sudden I go, all right, you want to draft Jaxson Dart in the 3rd, 4th round, sit behind Aaron Rodgers 1 year, then he sort of goes into a quarterback competition the year after. You see if he's ready. That's fine with me. Don't take him at 7.
Right.
No, that's we're getting way too far over our skis at that point if you're thinking about taking him at 7.
All right, real quick, top of the draft with the quarterbacks. Are you expecting both guys to be gone by pick 3? We know the Giants seem desperate to get a quarterback. Give us your feel. I know we still got months to go, but your feel right now, if you were projecting the top 3 of the draft, how's it looking?
At this point in time, I'd tell you that until these teams give me something more concrete that they're good at the quarterback position, I think it's going to be Cam Ward at 1, and I think I said this right after the Senior Bowl and the Shrine Bowl. I think one way or another, I think Shedeur Sanders is a New York Giant. That's what I think. I believe that the way that they were interacting with him, how long they had him in for interviews when he was at the Shrine Bowl, how much attention they paid to him, the top names within the organization were all trying to, get in with the interview and figure out who he is as a player. And he's a very confident kid. So if you're not like out on him already with kind of just the way he carries himself, because let's face it, he is a more flashy, confident type of a dude. And if you're not out on that immediately and you're willing to look into him, you're probably going to love a lot of the confidence of what he is talking about. And I think the Giants and Mara, they're desperate to win. And I think that they're kind of gravitating towards Shedeur. I think if the Titans are going to take one at number 1, it's probably going to be Cam Ward. So at this point in time, I would tell you that we are still getting 2 off the board in the top 3 because there's 2 types of teams in this league, ones that have quarterbacks and one that don't. And until you figure that out, you got to keep taking swings at the bat.
Is Travis Hunter a better corner or wide receiver?
I think right now he's a better wide receiver, but I draft him to play corner. So this is what I think. Connor and I, at the beginning of the year, we were a little bit different. He might have flipped. I'm not sure. I gotta keep tabs on my podcast.
Next episode of the Stop
right.
Podcast.
I guess that's the first thing I'm gonna say. We say, all right, before we get into this, now I got a question for you. So at the beginning of the year, Connor liked him a lot as a wide receiver because of the value that he could bring to the offensive side of the ball. I liked him the most as a corner because I think his traits are more unique at the corner position. I think his traits, how he approaches the game, the ball skills, the footwork, how fast that he flips his hips, the physicality, the length, all of that, like that, to me, that he screams that he could be a top 5 corner in this league. And for a wide receiver, maybe he could be a top 5 wide receiver. I think it's more likely he's probably, like fringe top 10, something like that. Still a very impactful player. But give me the guy and allow me to play him at the position that is more scarce and, in my opinion, even more valuable when you have a top-tier, shut-down CB1 type of a player. And if you play him at corner full time, I can still play him for 10 to 15 snaps at wide receiver every single week. You can't do the opposite. He can't play as a full-time wide receiver and then you go, hey, we're playing man coverage on this play. Why don't you go out and you cover that wide receiver? That's not going to happen. No defense coordinator is ever going to be able to let you do that. That's my thoughts.
Yeah, I agree. My fear is he goes to New England, so I don't want to deal with that as a.
If you are a Patriots fan, you probably got. I was just talking to Derek Klassen from the Athletic Football Show this morning about that. Christian Gonzalez on one side,
yep.
Travis Hunter on the other. That allows you to basically play defense however you want. Because you have 2 corners that can be shut down in zone, they can be shut down in off coverage, they can be shut down in man, they can be shut down in press, and then you can get more aggressive with your safeties. You can have more guys up front. You can play the front however you want. Yeah, Jets fans should not want Travis Hunter to go to New England Patriots. No, they should not want that.
Last one. Is Abdul Carter your number 1 player in the draft?
No, I still have Travis Hunter as my number 1 player in the draft, but I have Abdul Carter at number 2. I just think that Travis Hunter is the best football player in the draft.
Could you see Carter going 1 just because it's a premium pass rush position?
Yes, absolutely. Yeah. I think that those guys are very close. I have Hunter over him just again because I just think he's the best football player. He's just so rare in how good he is. But Abdul Carter, dude had 1 arm in that college football playoff game, and he was still dominating, getting in the backfield. This is his first year that he has played edge. I think people forget that, right? I think that is truly still an under-talked about part of who he is as a prospect. Is this was his first year as a full-time edge rusher. And if you give him a couple of years in the NFL, strength and conditioning in the NFL, defensive line coaches with the NFL, I hate to say this because it's the same school, the same jersey, the same number, but it's hard to not see Micah Parsons when you watch Abdul Carter and what he is at his best.
He's Trevor Sikkema. My name is Jake Asman. You've been watching the Jake Asman Football Show. Of course, once again, we are presented by my friends at BetUS. If you're wagering on the game on Sunday, prop bets, player props, you name it, they have it. What color the Gatorade is going to be on the winning coach, BetUS has it. Thanks to them for sponsoring the Jake Asman Football Show all season long. For Trevor Sikkema, my name is Jake Asman saying thanks for watching. We'll be back with more coverage throughout the week, live from Radio Row here in New Orleans.